The Bahamas is by far the most beautiful place on the planet. Astronauts have looked down from space and said, this is the jewel. Endless space of just crystal clear coral reefs. The beauty that we have here is incomparable. The lionfish, if they're risking that, then at all costs we need to get rid of them.
Lionfish are an invasive species. They eat everything that can fit in their mouth. They reproduce very quickly, and they're venomous. They can pretty much destroy the biodiversity in an area.
A lot of people believe that this here is the problem to a lot of the fish species dying out.
The spines, they're poison. If you touch that and you get stuck inside there, you need to go to the hospital as soon as possible.
The venom in the lionfish, it's denatured by heat. So once you cook it, it's safe to eat. And they taste really good.
It's a tricky problem, and there isn't much that we can do about it besides killing it and eating it. Everyone's going to need to start eating lionfish if we're going to solve this problem.
It's 6 a.m. We're about to catch some lionfish. We have here my wife Danley, and we have here Javi. And me, I guess I'll play captain, Ivor.
I'll be captain as well.
She's the boss.
Okay, so we're at the spot now. We're gonna go shoot some lionfish.
Lionfish are a serious problem. They are voracious predators. In the Bahamas, we looked at the coral reefs that had lionfish. They cleaned out those reefs.
As you can see, I wasted no time. Brain shot right between the eyes underneath. The lionfish is toast.
Lionfish really are quite striking fish. They have these very dramatic stripes, also a little eerie to look at as well, because you know that it's pending danger, don't you?
Lionfish are one of the most beautiful fish in the ocean. Each one of their fins looks like a sail. I think if you didn't know how deadly they were, how dangerous, it would just be awe-inspiring.
The typical invasive species are some of these superorganisms. Whether they are just voracious predators, whether they have, venom that can protect them, whether it's because they have huge amount of reproductive output. The thing about lionfish is it pretty much comes with all of those traits.
Other fish can be eaten by sharks or bigger fish like barracudas. They don't have any natural predators.
They can consume a lot of different types of fish, and they just seem to never want to stop. They eat a lot.
They are able to eat indiscriminately, so they pretty much eat anything that will fit into their mouth. We found that lionfish actually reproduce as often as every 3 to 5 days. So you can see how they outcompete native species for food and space.
I practice free dive spearfishing, so I hold my breath, I go down. The deepest I've ever gone is 110 feet. There have been times where I've gone on a reef or a structure and I've seen 20 lionfish. Whenever I see them, I shoot them. A lot of people don't want to handle them because they don't want to risk that bite. All right, I'm just going to toss him in. Be that with you? You got it?
I got it.
If you catch a lionfish, you have to be very careful with how you deal with it. You have venom and spines that you have to pay attention to. Their venom is pretty serious. Typically, it's not lethal. It's just extremely painful. The fishermen who complain about it, they literally talk about wanting people to cut their arm off.
If you get stung, you're miles offshore and somebody gets an allergic reaction, you're going to be in problems.
It can definitely be deadly. If I got pricked in my head, maybe in my temple, the odds are low. But if I got pricked there or anywhere near my heart, it could certainly be fatal. I had on a glove when I got pricked. It's like a throbbing, burning pain. It feels something like you smashed your hand in a car door and then stuck it into a stove.
Even if the fish is dead, if you get stung by it, it'll still swell up your hands.
It's much like a surgical needle on the end of the fish, and it's got about 14 of them. That's 14 different opportunities for you to get stabbed.
Nothing really wants to eat this. Nothing wants to get spine. It's virtually a fortress.
I've been stuck quite a few times, actually. The first time wasn't so bad. The second time was like a little bad. By the third time, I definitely went to like the walk-in clinic the third time. We are just going to do a quick pan-seared whole fish. You need plenty lime, cut some pepper. You gotta have a little bit of kick if you're in the Bahamas. A little bit of spice. Add a little bit of salt. Take a little pinch of that and just get it into each of those little slits. Add a little bit of flour to coat the fish. And it's good to go. Peas and rice, lionfish, and some fried plantains. Grabbing a bit of that fish with some peas and rice. That's good. It's nice and thick, white, flaky meat. You know, everything that I think Bahamians like in a fish, you actually can find it in lionfish. And the fact that I think that I'm doing some good by getting a few lionfish off the reef and it's tasty, you know, doesn't hurt at all.
A lot of Bahamians don't go under the water to actually see the lionfish. Most Bahamians don't really think about it, so it's not really on their radar. Oh, gotta go. Oh, I see them. We're good. You got one?
I went into the cave. I was in position, and then I just let her go.
Lionfish originates from the Indian Pacific Ocean. It came over into the Atlantic accidentally. The aquarium trade seems to be heavily involved in the introductions.
History in the making as Hurricane Andrew is now making landfall in South Florida.
We've heard some more glass shattering.
We do think there were a number of introductions in Florida. Some people believe that lionfish did enter the water because of Hurricane Andrew, and that severe storm was able to actually smash some glass and introduce fish into the waters that way. After a few years, it started to spread across all of Florida and then eventually up the entire U.S. coastline. When lionfish really started to spread across the Bahamas, I mean, their numbers were astronomically high. It spread throughout all of the Bahamas and then all of the Caribbean and even into the Gulf of Mexico. It's just everywhere. It's very prolific. And when it got in, it was this explosion.
So we really are on the outskirts of the island right now. For anybody that really has no idea what spearfishing is, the closest thing I would describe it to would be underwater archery.
These are the stairs they used to walk the slaves up in chains hundreds of years ago when they brought them here. You better believe the fish can sense movements in the water much, much better than you can. And you just gotta realize you're in their territory, in their element, and you are kind of the dumbest thing under there. You enter the water on the fish's terms. It's archery from then on out. You take your breath at the top and then you go down and hunt.
Because so much of our country is ocean, seafood is a big part of our cultural identity. And so introducing something like lionfish, which is a seafood, can potentially be very impactful.
Some Bahamians eat it, some Bahamians don't. A lot of people are scared.
It is a difficult species to convince people to want to eat. First of all, you're saying things like venom.
But the lionfish meat isn't poisonous. It's a great tasting fish.
I don't like it.
You don't like it?
No.
Oh man, the first time I tried lionfish, I fell in love.
I've seen Bahamians try the lionfish and they were actually quite surprised with how well it turned out. We have a kind of traditional conch salad in the Bahamas. So we are going to take that and we're going to make it with lionfish instead. So we're just going to take the skin off of these fillets. We're going to cut these to begin putting it in the ceviche. We're going to add some citrus, a bunch of onions, tomatoes, peppers, that sort of thing. And we're going to have a nice salad. A little bit of salt. Having something that people are not so familiar with, like the lionfish, using it in a traditional preparation like this, it kind of bridges that gap. It gives them something to identify with. So a lot of Bahamians would be willing to try this. And usually if they like it, they'll have it again.
Around 2010, you did see them taper off a little bit, and then around 2012, they seemed to decline. However, there have been some recent reports showing that the coral reef heads that used to be full of tons of snappers, now they're just covered in lionfish. We actually believe because they were out eating so much of the fish that they were actually controlling their own numbers, and their population numbers were actually declining because they were eating themselves out. If they find new sources of plenty of food, they're just going to boom again. And this is a serious concern. What that means is our fisheries are forever going to be in trouble so long as they're in our waters. One of the best ways that humans can really help, and fishermen particularly, is by overfishing this species.
If you see a lionfish and you leave him there, you're actively being a part of the lionfish problem that we have. We should switch your focus and kill the invasive animal.
You know, people have been known to pretty much deplete entire species just through the demand alone. We want to create that demand for lionfish.
We're really good at wiping things out. This is a species that we need to wipe out. This is a serious issue. It's way beyond just the Bahamas. We're talking about the whole Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, all the way up the eastern coast of the United States. So it is an Atlantic issue. The whole of the Atlantic needs to address the problem for it to really be impacted. When it comes to environmental issues, usually scientists are always saying, okay, stop doing what you're doing. Everybody don't do this and don't do that. But at least with lionfish, the key message is get out there and kill more and eat more lionfish.
When I got a bit older at 10 or 11, we got our first spears. That's a whole nother experience because now you're able to see your prey in its eye.